The Senate will come to order. The Secretary will call the roll.
Senator Buck. Senator Cannizzaro. Senator Daley. Senator Doñate. Senator Dondero-Loop. Senator Flores. Senator Goycochea. Senator Hammond. Senator Hansen. Senator Harris. Senator Krasner. Senator Lang. Senator Neal. Senator Wynn. Senator Orenshaw. Senator Pizzina. Senator Scheibel. Senator Sievers-Gansert. Senator Spearman. Senator Stone. Senator Titus.
Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Please mark Senator Daley excused.
Thank you. Let the record reflect there are 20 senators present, and then mark Senator Daley present when he arrives. Please stand for the prayer by Pastor Gavin Jarvis of the Living Stones Church here in Carson City, Nevada, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
God, when we come before you, we do not only go to the one who governs and orders all things, but we go to the one who the Christian scriptures say is the source of all institutions and authority on earth. That means that the senators in this room are not only the elected representatives of our state, but your chosen representatives for Nevada in this year. I pray for them in this capacity that is your desire and will for them to serve as stewards and as leaders for Nevada. So please give them every tool that would help them to accomplish this task. As they continue in their meetings, committees, and this floor session, I pray that you would give them clarity of purpose, clear communication with each other, and wisdom on every matter that the Senate attends to this week. As the final weeks of this legislative session approach, I pray that you would grant these leaders that you have installed to pass bills that would lead to the flourishing of every resident of the state of Nevada. Provide a unified purpose for everyone in this room, and grant that these senators and the staff would be given your favor to do the tasks given to them with excellence. Please bless their families as they put in extra hours and in many cases are away for them from extended periods of time this month. May you do all this to show your kindness and your strength. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, order of business 3, reading and approval of the journal. By previous order of the Senate, the reading of the journal is dispensed with, and the President and Secretary are authorized to make the necessary corrections and additions. We will now go to order of business 16, remarks from the floor, introduction of guests. Senator Pizzina.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon. I'm very fortunate today to welcome 3 personal guests to the floor. I have one of my very best friends and my college roommate. Please stand, everyone. I have Jennifer Setmeyer, and she and her kids made the trip all the way from the East Coast to be here today, so they're getting a true education in the legislative process. I also have my nephew, Robert, and my niece and goddaughter, Emily, here today. So please welcome them and give them a big round of applause. Thank you.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a special guest with me today as well. Fakhar Mohammed is participating in the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative Professional Fellows Program, a program of the U.S. Department of State with funding provided by the U.S. government and supported in its implementation by American Councils for International Education. This Professional Fellows Program offers leadership and professional development opportunities to emerging leaders ages 25 through 35 and gives them the opportunity to spend 5 weeks in the United States, including 4 weeks working directly with American counterparts in individually tailored work placements with relevant private and/or public sector organizations. In this case, Fakhar is visiting us from Indonesia and is being hosted by the Nevada Department of Conservation and Natural Resources Division of Forestry, and actually was introduced to me this morning by Director Setmeyer. Fakhar is currently working as a land management officer in the Ministry of Agrarian Affairs and Spatial Planning National Land Agency of Indonesia, specifically in the office of Gorontalo Province. As the land manager, he is responsible for managing the implementation of several national strategic land management programs of the country of Gorontalo, such as the Land Redistribution Program and the Systemic Land Titling Program. Gorontalo is one of the youngest provinces in Indonesia with one of the highest poverty rates, and these two programs play a critical role in helping improve the social, economic, and conditions of the community by redistributing land to small farmers and enterprises, as well as providing a secure capital investment through land certification. So, with all that being said, would you please join me in giving Fakhar Mohammed a nice, warm Nevada welcome.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm very, very lucky to have with me today Jessica Rowe from the nonprofit Raise the Future. Since 1983, Raise the Future has remained committed to working with state and local partners to fill gaps in the child welfare system so that all waiting youth and families have the support they need to achieve and maintain lifelong permanency. Since expanding recruitment and family support services in Nevada in 2019, the state of Nevada has recognized Raise the Future as a leader in the child welfare field and has increased support for programs to ensure all of Nevada's waiting youth and their families have access to services that improve their long-term health and well-being. I was very fortunate to work last couple of sessions with Ms. Rowe on legislation that I believe really helps at-risk children who need a hand up, and she was tremendous in terms of whether it was coming up from Las Vegas to testify on bills, log into hearings, try to make sure that she advocates for the children that she's trying to help. Please make her feel welcome.
Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, colleagues. Today I have a special gentleman here today, Christian Giller, who we are recognizing for his long career as a first responder and in the field of public safety and critical care transport. Christian is a third-generation Nevadan and first responder who started his career here in Reno as a vice president for ambulance service of Reno. He later served as a firefighter, paramedic, as acting captain, and hazmat tech. His career took him to the East Coast, where he served as a transport paramedic for Advanced Response Team, then on to a senior public safety expert for the Science Applications International, where he worked for military installations worldwide for the Department of Defense. His leadership in business took him to a director of sales and marketing for MD Helicopters in Arizona, then as the chief operating officer for the California Shock Trauma Air Rescue, or CalSTAR. Finally, as a public safety director for the program operations for REACH Air Medical Services. Christian now enjoys his retirement here in Genoa, Nevada, as one of Northern Nevada's leading real estate team leaders. Please help me make him feel welcome today. Thank you.
Senator Krasner.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, I am so happy to welcome all of the students from Hugh Gallagher Elementary School. Please stand up, students from Hugh Gallagher Elementary School. If you're upstairs in the balcony, welcome. I am so happy. I have their principal, Sonia Hess. I have Thomas Pickett, Aurora Evans, and Emma Baxter. Thank you so much for joining us. Please join me in welcoming them. Thank you.
Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, you may or may not know, is First Responders Appreciation Day, Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the first day of National Police Week. So if you are here with any of our first responders, or with the Nevada Police Union, or anyone working in that capacity, if you could please go ahead and stand. We may have some, nope, they're taken up by students. Okay, but we've got folks on the floor with us. And so we just want to give a huge thank you to all of these amazing first responders who keep us safe each and every day. First proclaimed by President John F. Kennedy and established by a joint resolution of Congress in 1962, this special week gives recognition to all active duty law enforcement officers and those who have lost their lives in the line of duty for the safety and protection of others. In the chamber today, we have, as I mentioned, the Nevada Police Union, who represents our state police, working within the Nevada Department of Public Safety, Nevada Department of Wildlife, Nevada State Parks, Nevada Department of Agriculture, and the Nevada System of Higher Education. These state employees include our highway patrol troopers, parole and probation officers, fire marshals, state detectives, dispatchers, game wardens, park rangers, agricultural police, university police, and Capitol Police. I want to make sure that we thank them for their tremendous service and help make them feel welcome. I know that they work hard each and every day. We really appreciate all the work that you all do just to make sure that we can all continue to do what we do every day. And so from the bottom of my heart, a sincere thank you, having worked with many law enforcement officers over the course of my career. I know how hard your jobs are and how much you sacrifice and your family sacrifices. And so thank you very much for being with us here today. And if we could all please make them feel welcome. And Mr. President, I have another really special guest. Go ahead and stand. This is Karina Ferris, and she is a senior at the University of Nevada, Reno. Go Pack. And she will be graduating with her bachelor's in history and political science this Thursday. She is also the current Miss Silver State and will be competing for the title of Miss Nevada in June. And this past semester, she has been interning in our leadership office down here on the first floor. She's been great to work with and has been watching committees and taking notes and attending meetings and watching everything that we do in this legislative building to get a true taste of what it is that we do as legislators every single day. And so we're extremely proud that she is going to be graduating, and certainly want to wish her the best of luck because that is just so exciting. And after graduation, she does plan to attend law school and eventually run for office someday, hopefully in this building in the Nevada Legislature. And hopefully she has learned enough about how it is that this building works. I think it will serve her well. And so although we are sad to lose her down here in the first floor office, if we could all make her feel welcome, I would appreciate it.
Senator Severs-Gansert.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to welcome the children from Story County again and let everyone know that there's another school, George Westercard Elementary in Reno, that's also in the building. They're not here on the floor, but if you see some more students, they're from my district, and please make them feel welcome. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no further remarks, we're going to take a quick recess to allow our guests to leave the floor. Thank you. The Senate is back in order. We are on order of business 4, reports of committees.
Mr. President, your Committee on Commerce and Labor, to which are referred Assembly Bills numbers 110, 124, 223, 298, and 401, is had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation due passed. Signed, Senator Pat Spearman, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Finance, to which are referred Senate Bill number 285 and Assembly Bill number 464, is had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation due pass. Also, your Committee on Finance, to which were re-referred Senate Bill number 273, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation amend and due pass as amended. Signed, Senator Marilyn Dondero Loop, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Health and Human Services, to which were referred Assembly Bills numbers 206 and 289, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation due pass. Signed, Senator Fabian Dignate, Chair. Mr. President, your Committee on Judiciary, to which were referred Assembly Bills numbers 17, 68, and 183, has had the same under consideration and begs leave to report the same back with the recommendation due pass. Signed, Senator Melanie Scheibel, Chair. End of reports.
Order of business 6, messages from the Assembly.
Assembly Chamber, Crescent City, May 11th, 2023. To the Honorable Senate, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day passed Senate Bills numbers 40, 50, and 441. Signed, Susan Furlong, Chief Clerk of the Assembly. Assembly Chamber, Crescent City, May 15th, 2023. To the Honorable the Senate, I have the honor to inform your honorable body that the Assembly on this day passed Senate Bill number 171. Signed, Susan Furlong, Chief Clerk of the Assembly. End of messages.
Order of business 9, motions, resolutions, and notices. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that Senate Bill 237 be taken from its place on general file and placed on the Secretary's desk for the purposes of amendment.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that Assembly Bills numbers 21, 78, 107, and 146 be taken from their place on general file and placed on general file for the next legislative day.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that Assembly Joint Resolution number 6 be taken from its place on the resolution file and placed on the resolution file for the next legislative day.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I move that Assembly Bills numbers 354 and 355 be taken from their positions on general file and placed at the top of general file for today.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Senate Joint Resolution 8, introduced by Legislative Operations and Elections, urges Congress to enact legislation requiring Medicare to cover multi-cancer early detection tests. End of resolution.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move that Senate Joint Resolution 8 be referred to the Committee on Legislative Operations and Elections.
If there are no objections, so ordered.
That concludes Order of Business 9.
Order of Business 10, introduction, first reading, and reference.
Senate Bill 497, introduced by Finance, revises provisions relating to certain arbitrations concerning the cost of medically necessary emergency services. End of bill.
Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move to refer Senate Bill 497 to Finance. It revises, it's relating to certain arbitrations concerning the cost of medically necessary emergency services.
Senator Dondero Loop has referred SB 497 to Finance. Are there any objections? If not, so ordered. Senator, go ahead.
Senate Bill 498, introduced by Finance, makes appropriations to the Division of Museums and History of the Department of Tourism and Cultural Affairs for the replacement and purchase of computer hardware, software, and related services, office furniture, equipment, and vehicles, and for deferred maintenance projects. End of bill.
Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I move to refer Senate Bill 498 to Finance. It makes appropriations to divisions of museums and history of the Department of Tourism, Cultural Affairs through the replacement and purchase of computer hardware, software, and related services.
Senator Dondero Loop has referred SB 498 to Finance. Are there any objections? If not, so ordered.
That concludes Order of Business 10.
Order of Business 12, second reading.
Senate Bill 445, introduced by Finance, revises provisions governing emergency medical services. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
SB 445 is referred to the general file.
Assembly Bill 2, introduced by Growth and Infrastructure, revises provisions relating to public safety. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 2 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 19, introduced by Assembly Committee on Natural Resources, revises provisions relating to water. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 19 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 24, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services, revises the membership of the Committee on Emergency Medical Services. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 24 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 40, introduced by Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services, revises provisions related to inspections of food establishments. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 40 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 43, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Education, revises provisions relating to school emergency operations plans. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 43 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 47, introduced by Growth and Infrastructure, revises provisions governing the operation of off-highway vehicles. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 47 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 73, introduced by Assembly Committee on Education, provides right of public school pupils to wear certain adornments at school graduation ceremonies. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 73 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 116, introduced by Assemblywoman Brown May, etc., requires the provision of information and referrals concerning Down syndrome under certain circumstances. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 116 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 118, introduced by Assemblywoman Watts and Senator Dunyate, revises provisions relating to the Nevada system of higher education. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 118 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 131, introduced by Assemblywoman Cohen, etc., revises provisions governing urban and community forestry. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 131 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 136, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Health and Human Services, requires certain facilities to be licensed as child care institutions. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 136 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 162, introduced by Assemblywoman Gorlow, etc., establishes provisions governing the use of neonicotinoid pesticides. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 162 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 212, introduced by Assemblywoman Mosca, establishes provisions governing student transcripts. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 212 is ordered to the general file.
Assembly Bill 215, introduced by Assemblywoman Gorlow, etc., and Senator Orenshaw, revises the residency requirements for appointment as a member of the Nevada Silver-Haired Legislative Forum. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none.
AB 215 is ordered to the general file.
That concludes Order of Business 12.
All right, Order of Business 13, general file.
Assembly Bill 354, introduced by Assemblywoman Howdege, revises provisions relating to firearms. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows. Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 9 into Section 9 into bill.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Cannizzaro. Right? No? Senator Harris, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 354 prohibits under certain circumstances a person from possessing or causing a firearm to be present in or within 100 feet of an entrance of a place the person knows or reasonably should know is an election site. This prohibition does not apply to a law enforcement officer engaged in the performance of official duties, a private guard, or security personnel hired by the owner of the facility or property in which the election site is located, a person who possesses a firearm while in a vehicle, so long as the person does not brandish the firearm or remove the firearm from the vehicle, or a person who lawfully possesses a firearm in a place of residence, in a business, or on a private property that is located within 100 feet of an entrance to an election site. A person who violates this prohibition is guilty of a gross misdemeanor, except if the person knowingly possesses a firearm firearm or causes a firearm to be present with the specific intent to disrupt, interfere with, or monitor the administration of the election, the counting of votes, or any person who is voting or attempting to vote, then the person is guilty of a Category D felony. Additionally, the bill prohibits a person from 1, selling, offering to sell, or transferring, and 2, possessing, purchasing, transporting, or receiving an unfinished frame or receiver, ready frame or receiver, or market frame or receiver, unless the recipient is a firearms dealer, importer, or manufacturer, or such a firearm has been imprinted with a serial number issued by a firearms dealer, importer, or manufacturer in accordance with federal law and any adopted regulations. The bill is effective October 1, 2023.
Thank you. Are there any further remarks from the floor? Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to Assembly Bill 354. We already have a plethora of laws dealing with people's right to vote. All this does is further cloud those issues and make potentially innocent people who are CCW holders guilty of violating a law. We are, even as elected officials, we're not allowed to, when you're running for office, you can't even electioneer within 500 feet, if I remember right, of an election location. More importantly, though, this creates another gun-free zone, and if you've done any homework at all on all these mass shootings, there is an absolute connection between gun-free zones and the selection of those targets by the individuals. I'll just quote from the police chief in Nashville, from that horrible shooting. Police Chief John Drake said, quote, "It was the only school that was targeted. There was another location that was mentioned by the mass shooter, but because of a threat assessment by the suspect of too much security, they decided not to." In other words, these people that are doing these sorts of horrible mass shootings are not just randomly doing it, they are carefully selecting targets where they have maximum safety for themselves and minimum security to perform these terrible acts. The second portion of the bill deals with so-called ghost guns. Look, any criminal who has any brains in their head is not going to go and commit a crime with a firearm that they've just purchased and signed paperwork on and that has the serial numbers on it. The idea that somebody that is going to go and do a so-called ghost gun is never going to happen. Why? Because you can take a regular firearm and you can spend about 1 minute with a grinder and you can grind off the serial number. Secondly, on the rare occasions when people have actually been tied to a weapon on a site, the weapon has in almost all cases been there because the individual who committed the crime was shot or killed at the location. The whole gun registration thing, is, as far as stopping crime or protecting the public against the gun violence perpetrators, doesn't make any sense. No common sense thief is going to show up with a firearm that has that, and no common sense thief is going to use some second string gun that they make at home. If you're a criminal, like any person in any profession, you use the best tools available, and if they're worried about the gun falling into the hands of the law enforcement folks and then tracing it back to them, they will simply grind off the serial number. Secondly, there's an enormous black market for firearms, and in fact, how often have we seen in the press a statement to the effect of another felon is caught who has violated the gun laws? Well, how did that felon get the gun? He didn't go down to Shields or Sportsman's Warehouse and purchase it. He did it through that black market that exists. So this law, the ultimate reason that every town, who, as everybody knows, is being pushed by Mayor Bloomberg, the reason that they are anxious to have these kind of laws passed is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, as we speak, is creating a gun registry and listing people's purchases of firearms in spite of a federal law that prohibits that. And ultimately, when you've seen in other nations where they finally go and where they don't have the Second Amendment, where they go and confiscate the guns from ordinary, honest citizens, they do so by these sorts of gun registries. So that's what the second part of the bill does. So in both cases, these bills, both this one and the one we're going to hear in a minute, target, as always, completely innocent people who are already honest, law-abiding citizens. Therefore, I would urge my colleagues to vote no on Assembly Bill 354. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I rise in support of Assembly Bill 354. Over in the Elections Committee, we've had a lot of testimony this session about clerks, registrars who have resigned over the last couple of years out of fear for their safety, for their families, out of threats. We've had a lot of testimony about election workers who have opted not to want to work the elections again due to threats of intimidation, fear. I believe this bill will try to help, additionally with some other legislation passed this session, but I believe that this will try to help create a much healthier atmosphere at our polling places so that we don't have election workers, clerks, registrars not wanting to do this important work to keep our democracy going. So I urge its support.
Any further remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open a roll. We will take a brief recess. The Senate is back in order. We are on Order of Business 13, General File, AB 354. One more time, are there any further remarks? Senator Buck.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to AB 354. Many of you may not know, but I conceal carry, and I feel that this law would be wrong in that I have a right to protect myself. I'm not intimidating anyone. In fact, many people don't even know that I have my weapon on me. I think that we have a right to protect ourselves as citizens of Nevada and of the United States. Thank you.
Senator Severs-Ganser.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to Assembly Bill 354, and I just want to point to one section in particular. It's 1 sub 5, A, B, and C. When you talk about the definition of an election site, it includes under C a ballot drop box. And it was mentioned before, ballot drop boxes, I believe this was mentioned, can be in grocery stores, they're in malls, they're all over, and it's really hard to make sure you don't have someone within 100 feet. And it was mentioned by my colleague who chairs legislative operations that we want to make sure that we can protect clerks and people who are working at the polling sites. But I wanted to remind everybody that when SB 406 came up, that was a bill to help protect clerks and observers and individuals working in election sites, that we voted unanimously to support it, to make sure there were consequences, severe consequences, if you were trying to intimidate or threaten anyone related to an election site. So that's why I'm opposed to it, is specifically around the Dropbox language, because it could be almost anywhere, and that and to make it clear that we supported SB 406 to make sure that clerks and observers and those around election sites were protected. Thank you.
Are there any further remarks? Seeing none, the Secretary will open a voice roll.
Senator Buck. Senator Canizaro. Senator Daley. Senator Doñate. Senator Andero Loop. Senator Flores. Senator Goycochea. Senator Hammond. Senator Hansen. Senator Harris. Senator Krasner. Senator Lang. Senator Neal. Senator Wynn. Senator Orenshaw. Senator Pizzina. Senator Scheibel. Senator Severs-Gansert. Senator Spearman. Senator Stone. Senator Titus.
All right, the vote is 12 yeses, 8 noes. Or what does that say? Is it 8? Okay. All right. 12 yeses, 8 noes, receiving a constitutional majority. AB 354 is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 355, introduced by Assemblywoman Howdy, etc., revises provisions relating to firearms. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1 and to Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 4, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 355 provides that a person who is less than 21 years of age is prohibited from handling, having possession of, or controlling any semi-automatic shotgun or a semi-automatic center fire rifle. A person who violates this provision would be guilty of a gross misdemeanor. The bill provides an exception for a person who is less than 21 years of age and who is a member or an honorably discharged member of the Armed Forces of the United States, the Nevada National Guard, a reserve component, or a law enforcement officer. The bill also provides the following penalties. A person who aids or knowingly permits a person who is less than 21 years of age to handle, possess, or control such firearms would be guilty of a misdemeanor for a first offense. A person who knows or has reason to know that there's a substantial risk that a person who is less than 21 years of age will use such firearms to commit a violent act is guilty of a Category C felony for a first offense. A person who commits a second or subsequent offense of either crime would be guilty of a Category B felony with a prison term of not less than 1 year, not more than 6 years, and a fine of not more than $5,000. A person would not be in violation of these provisions if the firearm was stored in a securely locked container or at a secure location, was obtained because of an unlawful entry, or the injury or death resulted from an accident related to target shooting, sport shooting, or hunting. Additionally, unless a greater penalty is provided by law, a person would be guilty of a misdemeanor if the person negligently stores or leaves such firearms at a location under his or her control and knows or has reason to know that a person who is less than 21 years of age who is prohibited from handling, possessing, or controlling a firearm may obtain such a firearm. The bill clarifies that a child who is 14 years of age or older who has in his or her possession a valid license to hunt or is at his or her residence may not handle, possess, or control a semi-automatic shotgun or semi-automatic centerfire rifle. Lastly, the bill requires that any rifle or shotgun which a child 14 years of age is otherwise entitled to handle, possess, or control at his or her residence is to remain unloaded and stored in a securely locked container when not in use.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Stone.
Good afternoon, colleagues. I rise in opposition to AB 355. AB 355 is a copy of a California law that was recently overturned by the Ninth Court of Appeals in May of 2022. As most of you know, the Ninth Court of Appeals has never been considered a federal court with a conservative bent, but rather a moderate to liberal bent. While we will all agree on a majority of the bills that we will collectively hear on this floor this session, there will be some bills that we will remain deeply divided on. And that's okay, that's how democracy works. While there may be some constitutional rights that any of us can disagree with personally, I must remind all of us that we took an oath of office to support and defend the constitutions of Nevada and the United States, including our Second Amendment rights, especially those that have been codified by the federal courts as constitutional, or in this case, found unconstitutional. If one looks at other states or cities, for that matter, that have adopted vast gun control laws, such as Chicago, New Orleans, New York City, they have not prevented escalating gun violence. 170 victims have been killed by gun violence so far in Chicago this year, with just 5 months into the new year. The senseless loss of life is horrific. Instead of defunding police like they did in Chicago, they should invest more in public safety to minimize these heinous crimes. You see, criminals do not follow the gun laws that law-abiding citizens must abide by. Adding more needless laws that are not even constitutional, like this one, will not stop the surge of gun violence that we all find horrible. You may ask, why do we have such an increase in gun crimes? I believe it's due to the lack of mental health services for our youth nationwide. We can and should better fund youth mental health services. And of course, the intense peer pressure that exists on social media that has had a deleterious effect on our youth, including depression, anger, suicide, and yes, homicide. And of course, those municipalities that have reduced public safety investments. As a solid constitutionalist, I support our Second Amendment rights, even when it may not be politically expedient to do so. It should not be a crime for a parent to teach a teen how to safely use a semi-automatic weapon for target practice or for hunting, for that matter. If an 18-year-old can serve in the military and put his life or her life on the line to protect our Second Amendment rights, they should be allowed also to possess and purchase such weapons. I know that if this bill is passed, if it becomes law, it will be litigated. And based on consistency with court decisions, it'll be a waste of taxpayer money because we will lose that lawsuit. For those reasons, I urge a no vote on SB 355.
Senator Donate.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today, I rise in support of Assembly Bill 355, which raises the age to purchase a semi-automatic shotgun or rifle from the age of 18 to 21. Let me start off my remarks by mentioning that the issue of gun violence is a public health crisis. Gun violence is the leading cause of premature deaths in the United States. We've known about this statistic for many years, and yet we have refused to act as the rates keep rising. Throughout this session, we have had conversations as to what we can do to prevent the occurrences that we're seeing across the country. Throughout this time, since we've started in February, we have seen cases of mass shootings in this country, and I, for one, believe that we have reached a moment where, in our nation, where our reflection must come with a direct action. Every single time an event like this occurs, either nationally or here at home, we always mourn together and we think to ourselves, what can we do better? Where did we go wrong? And yet, when we have a policy right in front of us with the ability to control the narrative and set forth common sense policies, here it is. This is a potential deterrent that we have for gun violence injuries in our state. We can have conversations as to what prior policy discussions have been. I'll take an easy comparative one. When we raised the age of purchasing certain items, for instance, when we raised the drinking age back in the 80s, the U.S. Department of Transportation determined that by raising the age of purchasing certain items, we were able to use a policy framework for deterrence that had a direct effect on reducing accidents among youths and also consumption. What we know now is that a level of deterrence, and in this case, raising the age of being able to purchase an item, whether enacted by policy or not, can have an influence on the improvement of injury prevention. And as part of the research that I gathered, I have with me a printed article. Police state that teen was arrested for having an assault weapon in South Lake Tahoe. In April 2019, a 19-year-old teen was arrested for holding an assault weapon while riding in a Mercedes in South Lake Tahoe, right across from state line. The teen, who was originally from Dayton, Nevada, was taken into custody. And when police interviewed him, he mentioned that he had the assault weapon in his vehicle so that he could Snapchat himself with it while music was playing in the background. Key point, he was arrested across state line, but if he was just a few feet away from nothing in this state would have prevented him from being held accountable for his actions. Assault weapons are not toys. They are not some cool gadget that you can film on TikTok or Instagram with music playing in the background to send to your friends. They are weapons specifically designed to cause mass casualties, and they deserve to be kept out of the hands of those who are not yet mature enough to understand the severity of their actions. It's time that we treat this issue with the severity that it is, that gun violence is a public health issue, and I encourage my colleagues to vote yes on this bill.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to Assembly Bill 355. However, I'm going to reserve most of my comments for when we go to Order of Business 16. I just wanted to say ditto to my colleague from Senate District 20, but he left out one interesting point, and that is we just had another ruling by a federal judge in Virginia, a U.S. judge's ruling striking down a federal law that bans licensed federal firearms dealers from selling handguns to young adults under 21 is the latest example of how a landmark Supreme Court decision is transforming the legal landscape around firearms. In other words, we have another federal judge relying in this case on a June 2022 United States Supreme Court decision that says American citizens 18, 19, and 20 years old have a Second Amendment right just like all the rest of us. So I'll deal with some of the other comments from our Senator from District 10 under Order of Business 16. But yeah, there's a whole lot of interesting things about deterrence, and we'll cover that in detail at that time. In the meantime, though, as far as Assembly Bill 355 goes, I would urge my colleagues to support the constitutional right of the same ages, by the way, that they can go in the military. And it does seem interesting, too, that in this body we have voted to allow minors to have major medical decisions, abortion decisions, all the way down with an unlimited lower end. You can be 10 years old and make these kind of decisions. Yet here we have 18, 19, 20-year-olds who we're going to deny a fundamental constitutional right. So I would urge my colleagues to think carefully about this one. This one's blatantly unconstitutional, as well as being just offensive to all the young people in the state of Nevada, treating them like they're little kids that can't use firearms with any degree of common sense. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Titus.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in very strong opposition to this bill. AB 355 may have been brought forward with good intentions, and I hear passionate speeches from my colleagues about assault weapons and the deaths that have occurred, but they're failing to recognize even what these weapons are. I would say that the majority of the body do not know the difference between a rimfire or a centerfire and what that even means. They're throwing in semi-automatic shotguns and semi-automatic rifles in the same category as assault weapons, which is not the truth. My family in rural Nevada has been raised with a tradition of hunting. We like to take our kids out and practice with that. We have a high school club that shoots clay pigeons. For folks who don't know what that means, it's a little disc that we shoot out there, throw out on our river property, and we practice shooting those things. They're water soluble, so they don't destroy the environment. And it's a sense of learning, and it's a sense of fun. Those of you that see me know that I'm not a very big person, so I don't use a 12-gauge shotgun and that I have to pump on my own, because it will kick me over. I use a 20-gauge, and I use a 20-gauge semi-automatic, because the energy of the firing of that shell puts the next shell in for me. I have my granddaughters who are 14 and 8 shoot that. We have a good time with that. Bills like this have an unintended consequence. I understand the concern about these mass shootings. But let me tell you, this kind of bill that's right, Section 1, Number 1, that talks about anybody less than 21 shall not handle or have in their possession at any time a semi-automatic shotgun. My family breaks that rule all the time, but they do it under our observation for good learning in the future. We are hunters. You should all, at any time, want to know the difference in these weapons? Come down to my property. I will bring my granddaughters down and show you how safe this can be and the unintended consequences of family traditions. I agree with the concern about assault weapons, and maybe we should work on the mental health of that. So I would urge this body to recognize, like so many times, the unintended consequences of these bills be passed. Please vote no on AB 355. Thank you.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, the secretary will open a voice roll. Oh, yay, all right. We're back to a regular roll. Go ahead and vote. Anyone wish to change their roll, vote? Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 12, the noes are 8. Which one is this? AB 355 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Mr. President.
Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. May we go to order of business number 9?
Okay, we are now on order of business 9.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would move that all necessary rules be suspended and that Assembly Bills numbers 354 and 355 be immediately transmitted to the Assembly.
Okay, you've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay? Nay. Motion carries. We are now back on order of business 13, general file.
Senate Bill 159, introduced by Senator Hammond, revises provisions relating to pest control. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1, end of Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 17, end of subsection 3, end of bill.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Hammond.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 159, as amended, requires the Director of the State Department of Agriculture to adopt regulations consistent with the applicable federal law and industry best practices to authorize a person to train as an applicator to engage in pest control activities for a period of not less than 90 days without holding a license as an applicator. Such regulations are required to allow an applicator or trainee to apply general use pesticides under the direct supervision of a person who is licensed as an applicator, and 2, restricted use pesticides under the immediate supervision of persons who are licensed as an applicator and at the supervising applicator or pest control business that employs an applicator trainee is responsible and liable for all actions of the applicator trainee. Senate Bill 159 as amended becomes effective on passage and approval for purposes of adopting regulations and performing preparatory administrative tasks necessary to carry out the provisions of this act, and on October 1st, 2023 for all other purposes.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21, the noes are 0. SB 159 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 167, introduced by Senators Dondero Loop, etc., and Assemblywoman Thomas, prohibits the imposition of step therapy under certain circumstances. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 17, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 167 is amended, prohibits private insurers, voluntary purchasing groups, insurance plans for state, local, and private employees, and the Nevada Medicaid program from imposing a step therapy protocol for a drug that is approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration, or that a medical or scientific evidence establishes may be used to treat a psychiatric condition if a practitioner who meets certain requirements prescribed the drug and that practitioner reasonably expects each drug that is required to be dispensed according to the step therapy protocol to be ineffective. Senate Bill 167 is amended, authorizes the Commissioner of Insurance to suspend or revoke the certificate of authority of a health maintenance organization that fails to comply with the applicable requirements of this bill, as well as take such action against other health insurers who fail to comply with the applicable requirements of this bill. Senate Bill 167 as amended becomes effective on July 1st, 2023.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of SB 167. When you're dealing with psychiatric patients, you're dealing with people that are in crisis. And choosing the right medication can get them back on track or stabilize rather fast. We shouldn't have the insurance companies dictating the health care of these patients. We should be having doctors doing that, and that's why I support this legislation. I urge a yes vote.
Any other remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change your vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21. The noes are 0. SB 167 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 275, introduced by Senators Daley and Orenshaw, revises provisions relating to manufactured home parks. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, to enact as follows. Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 7 and subsection 2 and bill.
Senator Daley.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 275, as amended, establishes the methodology to calculate the maximum annual rent increase percentage available for a manufactured home park and requires the Housing Division and Department of Business and Industry to annually calculate and publish on an internet website maintained by the division the maximum annual rent increase percentage allowable in manufactured home parks for that fiscal year. This bill also requires the division to issue a press release containing the maximum annual rent increase percentage for that fiscal year and maintain on the internet website for at least 2 years information relating to each maximum annual rent increase percentage. Additionally, Senate Bill 275 as amended prohibits a landlord or his or her agent or employee from increasing rent for a tenancy that is from month to month and not long-term lease unless the amount of the increase does not exceed the maximum annual rent increase percentage calculated by the Housing Division plus the amount of pass-through expenses actually incurred by the landlord of the manufactured park. As amended, this bill also requires the Housing Division to adopt regulations establishing the process by which a landlord or their agent or employee can apply to the division for an exemption from this limit on the maximum annual rent increase if the operating costs of the manufactured home park would exceed the amount the park would earn in rent if the maximum annual rent increase was applied. Senate Bill 275 as amended is effective upon passage and approval for the purpose of adopting any regulations and performing any other proprietary administrative tasks that are necessary to carry out the provisions of the Act, including the Housing Division's determination of the maximum annual rent, and on July 1, 2023 for all other purposes.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Senator Stone.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in opposition to SB 275. I appreciate the author's attempt to ensure that those people that live in mobile home parks in Nevada have space rents that remain affordable. Before one buys a mobile home or brings a mobile home into a space rental park, they negotiate a lease which may include lease options. These are legal contracts in the state of Nevada. Why are we intervening? Individuals are not compelled to sign such leases. They are voluntary. This bill seeks to cap space rentals at 60% of CPI, which is already troubling. Why would we limit any industry to not recover at least their higher inflationary costs? Vendors working at these parks are not capped at 60% for their expenses when billing the park owners for the repairs, not limited to, but including infrastructure upgrades, which can be expensive in our many aging parks. The county assessor is certainly not going to cap the property taxes that the park owners must pay. Without control of incessant federal spending being vigorously debated in Congress today, inflation will continue to be an economic thorn affecting all industries and all of us. Many residents of parks, especially senior parks, may want to see a modernization of their clubhouses, which are very popular in these parks, and they may even agree to a higher assessment to see such improvements come to fruition. If this bill passes, there will be no incentive for a park owner to do such improvements without knowing for sure that they may get back a return on their investment. Why does it seem that the rental market is such a target by this legislature this session? One of our colleagues has a plumbing business, another an HVAC business. Will they be targeted next session to not receive their true costs and cap their profitability by a random percent? Will attorneys that charge professional fees in the hundreds of dollars an hour be your next target? Will grocery stores selling food that is costing them more money, hurting many seniors, be your next target? What about the restaurants and the higher food prices they must charge due to higher wholesale prices that they pay? Will they be your next target? My point is that we should not cap the return on investment that any industry seeks in response to economic issues that they have very little control over. This is what socialistic countries do. In capitalistic societies, industries compete for their business. Competition is good and keeps prices fair and competitive with respect to the marketplace. To target one industry that has made significant investments in Nevada that must also comply with the complex regulatory laws pertaining to them should be entitled to get a return on their investment as the market dictates, not as the legislature deems fit. This bill will set dangerous precedents as it may decrease real estate investments in Nevada, discourage the development of future mobile home parks, stifle investment in existing parks, hurt the value of privately owned mobile homes in existing parks that will be directly affected by the resultant lower cap rates, hurting many of our seniors. Government control of rent has failed in just about every community that has enacted them. Just look at San Francisco as an example. This bill, if passed into law, will reduce large future investments here in Nevada, decreasing the housing stock that we desperately need in Nevada to competitively lower rents. For these reasons, I urge a no vote.
Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in support of Senate Bill 275. When I often go door to door in the mobile home parks, manufactured home communities in Senate District 21, and I meet seniors on fixed incomes who've spent their life savings to buy the manufactured home, to buy a piece of the American dream and become homeowners. And very often they tell me stories of rents rising much, much higher than they had ever expected, and putting them in situations where they've got to decide between grocery bills and medicine versus the space rent. Certainly, there's not equal bargaining power for folks who live in manufactured home communities. To try to move the unit can often cost $10,000 or more if it's in good enough shape to be moved. So you have a lot of folks who are there who can't move and can't try to walk away, or they've lost everything they put into that home. I urge its passage. I think that this will help a lot of people stay in their home and not become homeless. I really urge its passage. Thank you.
Any further remarks? Seeing none, the Secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the Secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 13, the noes are 8. SB 275 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Senate Bill 452, introduced by Finance, revises provisions governing the allocation of the proceeds of the basic governmental services tax to the people of the state of Nevada represented in Senate Assembly to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 5, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Cannizzaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Bill 452 requires that the portion of the governmental services tax that is currently deposited in the state general fund instead be deposited in the state highway fund on a permanent basis beginning in fiscal year 2024. This would redirect 100% of that governmental services tax to the highway fund.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21. The noes are 0. SB 452 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 27, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor, revises provisions relating to contractors who provide management and counseling services on construction projects. People of the State of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 3, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Senator Buck.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 27 requires a general building contractor who provides management and counseling services on a construction project for a professional fee to have an active license in the same classifications or subclassifications that are required to be held by the prime contractor on the construction project. Effective date, this bill is effective upon passage and approval. Thank you.
Are there any remarks? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 17. The noes are 4. AB 27 has declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 29, introduced by the Assembly Committee on Commerce and Labor, revises the grounds for disciplinary action against a licensed contractor. The people of the State of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 2, this act becomes effective upon passage and approval. End of bill.
Mr. President.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you. Assembly Bill 29 provides that the making or the causing to be made a false or misleading statement or representation of the omission of material fact by a licensee who is a natural person, or by owner of a licensee, a managing officer or a licensee, or any person who qualifies on behalf of a licensee in connection with the application of another person for a contractor's license for the purpose of assisting the applicant to obtain a license constitutes cause for disciplinary action against a licensee by the State Contractors Board. The bill is effective upon passage and approval.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21. The nays are 0. AB 29 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 236, introduced by Assemblywoman Monroe Moreno, revises provisions governing the practice of psychology. People of the State of Nevada, represented in Senate Assembly, to enact as follows, Section 1 into Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 3, end of subsection 2, end of bill.
Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're batting 1,000 now. Assembly Bill 236 eliminates an exception from the prohibition of a person representing himself or herself as a psychologist without a license issued by the Board of Psychological Examiners for psychological scientists employed by a certain educational institution or public agencies, thereby prohibiting a psychological scientist from representing himself or herself as a psychologist without a license issued by the board. The bill specifies that the provisions governing a psychologist do not prevent the teaching of psychology or psychological research that does not involve the delivery or supervision of direct psychological services to a person when conducted at an accredited educational institution. Additionally, the bill authorizes certain persons to use the title psychologist in conjunction with teaching or psychological research only when those activities are conducted at an accredited educational institution. The bill is effective upon passage and approval for the purpose of adopting any regulations and performing any other preparatory administrative tasks, and on January 1, 2024, for all other purposes.
Are there any remarks on the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21, the nays are 0. AB 236 has received a constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
Assembly Bill 276, introduced by Assemblywoman Duran, etc., revises provisions governing telehealth. The people of the state of Nevada, represented in Senate and Assembly, do enact as follows: Section 1 and Section 1.
Are there any amendments?
There are none. Section 2, this act becomes effective on July 1, 2023. End of bill.
Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Assembly Bill 276 clarifies that the term telehealth includes communication between a provider of health care who is providing in-person services to a patient and another provider of health care at a different location. The measure also authorizes a provider of health care who is conducting a forensic medical examination of an apparent victim of sexual assault or strangulation to use telehealth to connect to an appropriately trained physician, physician assistant, or registered nurse for the purpose of obtaining instructions and guidance on conducting the examination.
Are there any remarks from the floor? Seeing none, the secretary will open the roll. Anyone wish to change their vote? Seeing none, the secretary will close the roll. The yeses are 21, the noes are 0. AB 276 has received the constitutional majority, is declared passed and ordered to the Assembly.
That concludes Order of Business 13 and the business of the desk for this legislative day.
All right, we're on Order of Business 16, remarks from the floor, introduction of guests. Senator Orenshaw.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I wanted to point out to all my colleagues here in the Senate a blue pin that you should have at your desk. The Sergeant at Arms should have put it on your desk. That was a gift from our colleague from Henderson from Assembly District 29, and it is regarding trying to stop hate and stop anti-Semitism. In the United States, Jews account for 2.4% of our total population, but in our country, they are victims of 8.7% of all hate crimes and 55% of all religious hate crimes. 40% of American Jews have avoided visiting locations, wearing symbols, and sharing content identifying them as Jews. In 2021, 1 in 4 American Jews reported having been the targets of anti-Semitism in the last 12 months. Certainly, anti-Semitism is on the rise. This is not just a threat to the Jewish community, as accepted hate in any form is a threat to our nation as a whole. Given this, the Foundation to Combat Anti-Semitism has launched a new national campaign to mobilize all Americans to stand up to Jewish hate by using the blue square emoji as a unifying symbol of support. To learn more, they have a website, standuptojewishhate.org, and they can be followed on social media. The Assemblywoman and I are encouraging everyone to wear the blue square emoji pin, which is on your desk, to show your support for the campaign against anti-Semitism and standing up to Jewish hate. Thank you, President.
Senator Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to revisit the gun issue, surprisingly. This is the bill. We had several bills, never got a hearing. I want to start off with pointing out that one of the groups that wanted to speak at these hearings was the SHOT Show. They bring 60,000 visitors to Clark County, an estimated $200 million impact. They are the largest convention in Nevada. They brought in over 2,500 exhibiting businesses. So even if you're not a strong supporter of the Second Amendment, I would think just from an economic standpoint that we should be very careful about spitting in the face of these giant businesses that come here. And by the way, they have made it very clear that if we pass these bills and they actually become law, that they will not come to the state of Nevada anymore. Another issue that has been brought up is that the United States is the most dangerous nation on the earth when it comes to gun deaths. Actually, we're number 32 in the world. Ahead of us are El Salvador, Venezuela, Guatemala, Colombia, Honduras, Brazil, Mexico, Dominican Republic, Panama, Jamaica, Haiti, Philippines, Paraguay, Costa Rica, Iraq, Ecuador, Somalia, Palestine, South Africa, and that's not a complete list. So the idea that we somehow, because of our Second Amendment, are some sort of a crazy gun zone where everybody's shooting everybody, we don't even make the top 10. The question of deterrence came up, brought up by my colleague from Senate District 10. Just a quick reminder, in the United States from 1994 to 2004, we had a semi-automatic weapons ban. All the guns everybody's talking about, AR-15s and so forth, guess what? You couldn't buy one for over a decade. And you know why that law was allowed to sunset? Because it did nothing. you saw no decrease in crime or gun violence in the United States, even though we once again disarmed the law-abiding, honest citizens. The idea, too, that assault weapons, everybody likes to throw that word around. Especially the whipping boy right now is the AR-15. Just so everybody knows, there are now an estimated 25 million AR-15s in the United States. 25 million. And they have been the 5th most popular firearm since the ban was lifted. I own an AR-15. Why did I buy an AR-15? Many of you know my youngest son is a Navy SEAL. And I asked him what gun I should buy. Now, if you know anything about Navy SEALs, they know a lot about weapons. And my son suggested I get an AR-15. And it's a semi-automatic weapon. And everybody in this room is surrounded by semi-automatic weapons. Our law enforcement community, including the game warden that was sitting in front of me, is actually armed with a semi-automatic weapon. In fact, he had 60 additional rounds, too. Yet nobody in this room has suggested that we take away the firearms from our law enforcement, which are every single one of them are semi-automatic weapons. Now, why don't we do that? If we were a gun-free zone, would we not feel safer? The theory is that firearms are somehow the cause of violence in American society. If you really believe that, then the first thing we should do as a legislative body is, number one, disarm our own law enforcement community right in front of us, and make sure that nobody sitting in this room has a CCW. Now, here's the stats that everybody needs to listen to, and that is there are now 450 million firearms in the United States. The number has gone from 270 million the year I was elected in 2010 to today we're at 450 million, and it's going up every year by the rate of about 15 million a year. If firearms in and of themselves caused violence, we should have seen this massive spike in gun violence in the United States. But what do we see? The exact opposite. Why? Because not only do guns act as a deterrent to crime, but because of the expansion of the entire CCW program, including here in Nevada. We've seen a big drop-off. Remember, when CCWs were first discussed and considered seriously, it was the law enforcement community that were pretty aggressive in saying, no, we don't want to have people doing that. Who are the biggest champions of the CCW program now? Law enforcement. Why? Because they have seen a big drop in crime all the way across the United States. So, we talk about a public health crisis. No, we talk about gun violence as though guns in and of themselves are the cause of all these deaths. No, we don't talk about auto violence. We don't talk about knife violence, blunt instrument violence. And by the way, there are many times more deaths from those 3 instruments than from AR-15s in the United States. No, so if we really truly wanted to have a major crackdown on gun-related deaths in the United States, we need to look at a few things. One, there has been a huge drop-off in the United States in the last 25 years. The number one place where you still see major problems with firearms are gangs, inner city gangs. And even then there's been a drop-off. But, and to pad the statistics, interestingly enough, normally when you think of children, you think of 18 and under or 17 and under. Right now, thanks to Everytown, they have been counting 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and 20-year-olds in the so-called children death category in the United States. Again, padding stats completely. And last but not least, the most important reason that we should have rejected these gun bills, we love our Constitution. We love the fact that you have a constitutional right, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That has been determined by the United States Supreme Court to be an individual constitutional right. We had some brilliant discussions in the Senate Judiciary Committee on making sure that we did not infringe in any way, shape, or form on our Fourth Amendment protection against unreasonable searches and seizures by the government. We were right to do that, and we were wrong to now not do the same exact level of scrutiny when it comes to our Second Amendment rights. Those are constitutionally protected. And I don't know about you, but when it comes to the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, to me, they're sacred things. We do not want to tamper with those without some exceptionally good reasons. And our United States Supreme Court's made it very clear those are now individual rights, every bit as much as the right to religion or any other of the great rights that are listed out in the Bill of Rights. So please, when we go forward with these things, and I'm hoping that we'll see a veto, But really, we should all be supporting the United States Supreme Court and its decisions on our individual constitutional rights as defined in the Bill of Rights. So thank you for allowing me this indulgence, but I think we need to pay very close attention to these potential infringements on constitutional rights. And in the future, these gun bills come up, please give consideration to the long-term data that clearly show firearm ownership in the United States has resulted in declines in crime and gun deaths. Thank you, Mr. President, for this indulgence.
Senator Lang.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to let the Committee on Education know that we're going to meet at 2:20.
Thank you. Senator Spearman.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just rise to say something else about the Constitution. I'm a strong supporter of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment. The 13th Amendment freed the slaves. The 14th Amendment made them citizens, and the 15th Amendment gave them the right to vote. Thank you.
Senator Dondero Loop.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to correct that the biggest convention in the Clark County area is actually CES with 180,000 participants, which is about 3 times or more what a SHOT Show brings in. Thank you very much.
Senator Canizaro. Oh, I'm sorry. What? Senator Scheibel.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to announce that Senate Judiciary will be meeting at 2:15 today. 2:15. Thank you.
Senator Canizaro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the Senate adjourn until the hour of 11 a.m. on Thursday, May 18th, 2023.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned.